How's everybody doing?
Good. How you doing?
Calvin Watkins, Dallas Morning News. On the interview process, when you got this job, why do you think you and Shotty hit it off so well?
That's a good question. I don't know that I've ever really thought about that. I think there's probably some personality similarities. I think away from football, we're the type of guys that would probably hang out and do things together. I think there's probably also some good complementary skill sets. I know that there's things that he does that I look at and I go, gosh, I wish I was a little bit more that way. So I didn't obviously get to make the decision to come here, but that was one thing that I thought was really good about it for me.
You were interviewing, I think Brian had said, you meet the Jones family and all those kinds of things. How did that, have you ever been through that situation before in terms of meeting the entire family in a sense, the football family, and to get the OC?
Not quite like this. Yeah, it was relatively unique, but it was cool. Never anything like that.
Clarence Hill, DLLS Cowboys. Javonte Williams, what vision did you have for the season? Did he remind you of anything of what you did with James Conner because of his size and strength and one-cut-ability?
Yeah, there's probably some similarities, but I would say just in general, we looked at the things that we thought he was doing well, which for the most part was kind of some in between the tackle stuff, and then we started working our way to the perimeter on some things, and he does a nice job of putting people on blocks out in space. I think I would say he's unique in the sense that he's a little bit faster than you think he is, and gets even more difficult to bring down once he's got some space around him. So that makes him kind of an attractive player to want to put out in space, where I think sometimes you're thinking about guys in space just being really, really fast. I guess similar to James in the sense that once those two guys have some space around them, they're really difficult for a defensive back to bring down.
Clayton, Todd Archer with ESPN. Shotty was saying that the first time, I think it was the first time you guys met face-to-face was before the game here in 23. Does that ring a bell with you? Do you remember meeting him?
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Yeah, that's probably accurate. I knew who he was, I think, before that, but that might have been the first time I'd met him.
Did you know that he had Chris Ballard, Matt Turpin, any of these guys, like that he had kind of asked around and young coaches, and did that come up in anything with the interview process? That knew a little bit about you before you guys actually got together and.
No, not really. Yeah, I didn't really have any idea there. We were in the middle of kind of a weird season in Indy that year. That Coach Reich had gotten fired, and so I had some other stuff on my mind.
Even after the fact, did you know that when he brought you in to talk about the job here, did you know that he already knew a little bit about you?
Probably not specifically, no, but I mean we kept in touch for sure after that.
John Machota with The Athletic. What would you say is the most enjoyable part of your job?
Oh man, yeah, not this. No offense. Probably the thing that I enjoy the most is game day, and it's probably a little bit hard for me to say because I always feel like leading up to the game, like I'm a little bit of a mess, and sometimes during the game I feel that way, like there's just a lot that's out of your control as a coach, but I always kind of relate it back. I constantly try to tell myself that I'm having fun. You're having fun. You're having fun. But I go back to something that I read in a book by Stephen Ranella like 7 or 8 years ago, that there's different degrees of fun. There's like roller coaster fun where you enjoy it for a second and then you kind of forget about it, and then there's things that you don't know that are fun until like 10 years later, where you look back and you go, that really sucked. That was a lot of fun. And so sometimes that's how I feel, on game day, is like, man, this is really stressful, and maybe it's not going the way you want it to all the time, but then you look back a year or two later and you're like, man, that was an awesome experience.
And then I think with Cowboys fans, there's a little bit of PTSD because there was a game a while back where they were down one offensive lineman and it was a complete disaster. And you guys were down 4 and you were able to play well. How much of a sense of pride do you take that you guys did have to start for backup offensive linemen, and you guys were able to play so well?
I don't know that any of us necessarily look at it that way. I mean, I feel coming out of it the same way that I did going into it, that I'm sure the players took a sense of pride with it because all those guys, they loved having an opportunity to play. And so, like I said, I feel the same way coming out of it that I did going into it of this is the National Football League, and when you're asked to, do something, it's an opportunity. And so you need to go in and you need to do a good job of it. So, kudos to those guys for going in and taking advantage of their opportunity. Kudos to Shoddy for calling a really good game, kind of based on what he knew going into it. Not that we had to change very much. And also, I think you always, you give a lot of credit to the quarterback because when he's on the field, you got a shot.
Nick Harris, Four-Star Telegram. Are you a big reader? You draw a lot of influence?
Yeah, I like to read when I have time. I don't get to do it much during the season, but
Anything specific?
The group that we worked with, the Special Forces group, gave us recommended a book here recently, and I grabbed it. I think it's Hidden Potential. It's pretty good. I've been trying to read as much of that as I can when I have time.
Your run scheme origin, where would you say you've drawn the most influence from how you've built your run scheme over the course of your career?
Yeah, it's probably a good question. One of the things that I found really attractive about the NFL when I made the jump from college football to the NFL was just that when I got to Indy, I was like, oh, we do everything, awesome, because it always felt like everywhere else I was at, it's like we're an outside zone team or we're a gap scheme team, and going back to like my playing days and my formative years at Boise State, kind of learning some of this stuff is like we just did everything. And so whatever fit best that week, that was what you tried to do. So, to me, that's how I look at the game is there's going to be opportunities based on the style front and the coverages that you're seeing and whoever the elite players are that you need to figure out ways to block or figure out ways to stay away from. And, can you do enough of that to be successful and also get your players to understand those things and also, do enough of what they do well.
Is there a coach or two that's influenced the most early in your career?
Yeah, I mean, my first year coaching was Chris Peterson's last year as the offensive coordinator, and that was back when there was only one GA on each side of the ball. So it was me and him in the room, doing the scripts and figuring stuff out. My first year, and then my second year as a GA, his first year as the head coach, which was the first Fiesta Bowl year in 2006. So I got to spend a lot of really, really quality time with him, which I'm grateful for. I never got to work for him again after that. I always kind of thought that I would, and he and I stay in touch quite a bit, but he's been a big influence on my career.
Patrick.
Hey Clay, Patrick Walker, DallasCowboys.com. Going back to one of the first quotes that you made to media after the hiring, you said that as far as your running game goes, you wanted to create violence, be aggressive, run and hit. Seeing where your running game is right now, it's top 2 in some categories, top 3, top 5 in another category. Do you feel like Javonte Williams and that offensive line has found its groove, or do you feel like there's still more to come there?
I think, in regards to like the stats, I don't know. But I think when you take the litmus test and you just watch it, I just think there's a lot of improvement that needs to be made for us to be operating on the level that we want to be operating on. I think the guys are playing hard for sure. I just think that there's a lot of intricacies of things that you watch and you go, gosh, that block, like we need to figure that one out, or our path is off here. It's a constantly evolving thing. I mean, we're in week 6 and there was a bunch of stuff after yesterday's practice. We're like, how are we, going backwards in this area? So you just got to continue to coach it. And as you catch one thing, and you catch up to one thing, another thing slips. So it's a balancing act. But to answer your question, I think we have a long way to go.
So do you feel like just in general, so you're speaking more of technique and certain things that you might see off in the game here and there, but generally speaking, do you feel like you guys are creating that balance that you wanted to achieve this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think we're running and hitting. I think there's plays where we do and there's plays where we don't, and that's one of our biggest issues right now is consistency. So yeah, I think we're headed that direction. As you introduce new elements into any scheme or group, you're going to have some sort of drawbacks and things like that. But I would say generally, yeah, the running back's been pretty fantastic in my opinion. And, the core group up front blocking for him, and that involves the receivers and the quarterback and the things that we're trying to get achieved in the run game. It's inconsistent.
Joe. Joe White, Dallas Morning News. You talk about doing everything in the run game. What goes into that?
Yeah, obviously you can't do everything, but I kind of like to look at them a little bit like little buckets of when you try to on Monday night or whatever, when you start looking at an opponent, is how what bucket do I put them into? Is this an attacking front that plays a 4-down structure, or is this going to be a 5-down structure with 2 gappers or read and react players? And then I've kind of got a list of things that I go back and go, don't forget about this, don't forget about this, because I think what's easy to do when you're looking at really any facet of football, but the part that I look at is it's easy to look at something and go, man, that's going to be a challenge. And every time you find something like that on film, there's always something you're giving up, right? And so that's the reminders that I try to set for myself is, that look really pisses me off, but there's an opportunity for this, and so trying to set those reminders for myself so I don't get frustrated is important.
Shotty talked at the combine in terms of searching for a running back, that they want someone with contact balance. With Javonte, what did you see from him in terms of what he could be from a contact balance perspective? And I guess how much did you learn about his contact balance as training camp went through, and then now the season is obviously 5 weeks in?
Yeah, and I think he's got tremendous contact balance, and he also plays he's a pretty compact player, which he's able to deliver shots to defenders, also kind of get on edges of defenders, which is important, and he's generally hasn't been a guy that's easy to lay a big hit on. So he's done a really good job that way. In regards to getting on the edges of the defenders, that's what I think makes him tough out in space.
Tommy.
Tommy Arsh, DallasCowboys.com. What's been the biggest part of learning or growth for you in becoming a coordinator versus being a position coach?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I think about that all the time. The thing that I think about being an offensive line coach specifically, and I guess you can live this way when I've coached tight ends, I've coached running backs. You get to kind of live on O-line island, or you get to kind of live on tight end island a little bit, and you can go shut your door and do your job. You don't get to do that when you're the coordinator. You've got to be involved with what everybody's doing, and ultimately you always have somebody to answer to as well. So in my case, that's the head coach, because he's so involved with the offense. But if you're working with the head coach on the other side of the ball, you still have him to answer to as well. So that would be the biggest difference of a million different differences, but the biggest difference is you don't get to isolate yourself and just say, I'm going to work on my piece because everything is my piece now.
What's it like with the guy who now is isolated and Connor Riley, and what's that dynamic been like between the two of you?
It's been awesome. I couldn't ask for somebody in that room that understands what I want at a higher level, but also is just completely low ego. There's times where, I can't get in there for a day, or I can't get in there for a couple of days, and I just know that it's being taken care of because the guy is really smart. He does an outstanding job. And then the low ego piece is if there's something that I feel like I've missed and we got to go back and talk about it, it's like, hey, you know what? Good. I'm all on board. Let's do it like that. And we're able to talk through things that we have disagreements on without it being, I guess for a lack of a better term, shitty,
Here in Model CBS Sports, Clayton, Brian Schottenheimer's talked about how it might not be the easiest thing to be an OC for an offensive play calling head coach because you don't have that responsibility, but he has given you, he said, full autonomy to put together the run game part of the plan. How, I guess, gratifying is that for you that even though it's his first year as a head coach, you have a massive game plan responsibility like that?
Yeah. I mean, certainly gratifying because any way that I can help our offense move forward, or any way that I can make his job easier is really important to me. But in regards to putting that part of the plan together, I mean, that's usually a big part of your job when you're coaching offensive line as well, is to be involved in that. I'd say where it's a little bit different now is just the other different situations, and trying to support the other guys that are game planning their areas. They'll usually come through with pretty good ideas, and sometimes you've got to jump in and help detail the finishing pieces of it or whatever it is. But it's been good. I feel like our staff is built really well, with low ego guys that are smart and hardworking. I think that's a good formula.
We'll finish up with that.
Ed Werder, WFAA. Shoddy called plays for 2 offenses in his career that led the NFL in rushing. How open-minded was he to some of the concepts you wanted to introduce, and what do you think are the most beneficial changes that you've introduced to the Cowboys?
Yeah, in regards to what are the most beneficial changes, I don't know that I can answer that question, just because we spent some time watching what they had done in the past just to evaluate. But I would say the biggest difference probably is just I think in order to have a successful run game, you've got to have a play caller that's really committed to doing it. And you just said it right there. He's got history in the past of when you're able to run the ball, he wants to run the ball. So that to me is a huge piece. And then I think that early on, as we were getting to know each other, I think there were some times where there would be some questions of, well, I don't know if I see that yet. I don't know, and then we'd watch some tape and I like it, but I don't know if I see that yet. And just like any relationship, I think that you've got to have positive experiences and negative experiences and kind of mold your opinion based on those things. And there's been things that have happened at practice that I've said, hey, you got to trust me here because it's not a good practice play. And then we get into a game and maybe it does good, and maybe I'll make that same comment and it goes and just gets blown up in the game, and then his opinions are built off of his experiences there. But it's been a growing process in that way, because he's right to be speculative, because he's calling the plays and he wants them to work. So it's my job to sell the things that I really believe in, and when there's things that he doesn't like, we need to move on, because ultimately he needs to feel confident in the things that he's calling.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.